And get started.
Automatic.
Hello, I am Laura Turner, the Rails Board President, and I call this meeting of the board to order at 1 p.m. at the Santori Library in Aurora. Emily, can you please call the roll?
Sure. Christine Barr.
Here.
Dave Barry.
Here.
Sue Busenbark. Here. Michael Campbell.
Here.
Gwen Gregory. Here. Liza Hickey.
Here.
Jake Haston.
Here.
Paul Middles.
Here.
Scott Clinton.
Here.
Dee Reynolds.
Here.
Nadia Shake.
Here.
Michelle Simmons. Thomas Stagg.
Here.
Laura Turner.
Here. Okay. Thank you, Emily.
Sure.
Got a full house today. And Christine, we don't see you in person very often, so it's nice. Okay, on to number 3, recognitions of guests and announcements. Okay, do we have any guests in Burr Ridge?
Yes, we do.
Yes, we had Bill Getz in Burridge.
Can he not hear
Running
us?
to get the microphone.
Should I wait?
Out of the room.
Let's move on.
Okay,
Okay.
do we have any guests in Bolingbrook?
Hi, this is Mark Hatch.
Guests in Coal Valley? East Peoria?
Hi, this is Robin Service.
Hi, Robin. Robin is my coworker, by
Ah.
the way. Robin is from
Oh.
Caterpillar. I think she may be interested in my special library seat.
Oh. Is that Cat Library?
Yeah.
The Caterpillar's endowed chair of
Right,
special
right.
libraries.
Take it over.
Right, right. Do we have any guests from the Illinois State Library?
Yes.
Hi, this is
Karen.
Karen.
Hello?
Hi, Karen.
And Monmouth College?
There's here. Guess her.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's right.
I didn't sleep well last night. And guests here in Aurora?
Yes.
Emily Feister Rails.
Dee Brennan Rails.
Jane Plass Rails.
Wesley Smith, Rails.
Mary Witt Rails.
Dan Slaughter Rails.
Joe Philippek Rails.
Thank you. Well, I didn't ask for public comments. Do I need to go back and do that?
Yeah.
Okay, so now we'll do public comments. I didn't do that together. I apologize for that. Do we have any public comments in Burr Ridge?
No, we don't.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Bill.
Hello, sorry, the volume was down.
That's okay. We got it.
Public comments in Bolingbrook?
Not today.
Public comments in East Peoria?
Not at this time, thank you.
Any public comments from the Illinois State Library?
No comments at this time, thank you.
Okay. All right, we will move on to number 5, adoption of the agenda. May I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. So it's moved by Dave, second by Jay. Is this a roll call?
No.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Okay, we'll move to approval of the Rail Board minutes, financial reports, and expenditures. For the Rail Board minutes from February 22nd, 2019, the regular meeting, may I have a motion and a second for approval?
So moved. Second.
So it's moved by Paul, second by Scott. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. All right, we'll move to the Rails financial report. We have Bill Getz in Burr Ridge, who will give the financial report and review expenditures.
Good afternoon. The February financial report's in your package. I just have a few highlights. The general fund cash and investments during the month of February increased by $2.7 million, thanks to the state paying $3.2 million. That was the balance of the 2018 APC grant. And also worth noting, in March, the state has paid the general revenue portion of the 2019 APC grant, $1.6 million. As for the rest of the 2019 APC grant, 5 of the remaining 6 live and learn payments have been vouchered and are pending at the Illinois Comptroller's office. There's no indication when they'll be paid, but they are in the pipeline. And thanks to all that money, the current funding by the state and rising interest rates, our investment income is $198,000 for this fiscal year. About $52,000 over budget and about $105,000 over the same period last year. Through the 8 months ended February 28th, total revenue is $10.3 million. That's about $1.86 million over budget. Again, thanks to the state paying the recent grant payments. Year to date, the fiscal year 2019 total expenditures are approximately $7,988,000, which is about $676,000 under budget. The major components are all under budget. Total personnel costs, building costs, professional services, legal and consulting expenditures, and contractual services. The delivery department expenditures remain under budget, and they continue to be about 32% of the total general fund expenditures. LSAP supports expenditures are approximately 18% of the general fund total expenditures, and they are also under budget for the year. At the end of the report is a list of the checks and vouchers for the month of February, which totaled $682,962.09. Any questions? No questions? Did you hear that?
We did, yeah.
Totally.
Well, hearing no questions, can we have a motion for the approval of the expenditures for February 2019?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Jay, second by Dave.
That is a rule.
Emily, can you please call the roll?
Christine Barr.
Yes.
Dave Barry.
Yes.
Sue Busenbark.
Yes.
Michael Campbell.
Yes.
Brent Gregory.
Yes.
Liza Hickey.
Yes.
Jake Caston.
Yes.
Paul Mills.
Yes.
Scott Poynton.
Yes.
Dee Runnels.
Yes.
Nadia Shake.
Yes.
Thomas Stagg.
Yes.
Laura Turner.
Yes. Motion carried. Okay, we will move on to reports. Item 7, report from the Rails president. I do not have a report this time. Here we go again, Paul.
That's coming.
Paul, do you have a report from the consortia committee?
I do not have a report from the consortium committee, ma'am.
And I don't have a report from the executive committee.
I do not have a report from the policy committee, ma'am.
Jane,
I do.
help us out here.
The Resource Sharing Committee met on March 11th, so a couple weeks ago. It was quite a full meeting. Cindy Clennon from Carly was there. Carly is looking into the possibility of brokering e-resources for non-academic libraries in addition to what they do for their members. This is very early stages. They were just looking for some feedback. There would be some sort of fee for the non-academic libraries. They don't know what that would look like. The members of the Resource Sharing Committee did express interest in it, particularly perhaps for some databases that they would like to have, but maybe wouldn't be in real high demand at their libraries to give them some additional options. Carly is going to get additional feedback from Heartland and other members and probably put together an advisory group, so very early stages on that. We did talk about that, we would certainly want to work in cooperation with them so there wouldn't be duplication of efforts between what they were doing and what Rails does, because we do some e-resource packages. Then we also talked about the universal service issue. Dee outlined the plans for the Universal Service Committee, and then we discussed the results of our second survey to community colleges. Still trying to get additional, we didn't hear from all of the community colleges yet, but we looked at some preliminary results, particularly in terms of their services to their district residents, not their students or faculty per se. And I would say not all, but the majority of community colleges do offer some sort of service to district residents. So could be a partial solution for the unserved issue. We're going to look at that and hopefully work with NILROC, which is the Network of Illinois Learning Resources in Community Colleges, and perhaps work with them to put together some best practices so that there could be maybe a little work towards more uniformity. And finally, Mark Hatch did a short but very informational presentation on delivery and how all of our routes interconnect so that we exchange materials 5 nights a week across the state. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's good information. Okay, we're moving right along to Rails reports and the Rails monthly report.
Yes, thank you. I should say that we did yesterday have a meeting of the Universal Service Committee, and it was a very lively meeting, I would say. Members from the board are Dave, and Sue is the chair, and Dee Reynolds, and did I leave anybody out from the board? I don't think so. And then also Carol Meadow from Gail Borden Library, Lynn Stainbrook from Rockford, and Larissa Good from Warren County. So a lot was talked about, and so I think it is best if I prepare with Sue sort of more of a kind of a written update for the next meeting.
Okay.
Because it was quite meaty and very positive, I think. And Greg and McCormick and Gwen Harrison were also at the meeting in the State Library, so that was great. And then we did just have an advocacy committee committee meeting before this. Advocacy is, I'm going to have to figure this agenda thing out, because it's on later as just a topic in general, as opposed to a specific committee report. So it's up to you, Gwen. Do you want to talk about it now or later or never? Or
That's not an option.
Talk about it where it is on the agenda.
Okay, all right. Sorry about that. Okay, so in terms of my report, let's see. So to start from the beginning, second thing there, explore more. You will be getting a complete report of this is the Museum Pass program that we're launching. Jessica's going to report next month because it will have launched. But at this point, we have 80 libraries signed up and 18 or 19 attractions. So it's already quite robust. And she has several more libraries and attractions on the list. So I think it's going to be very robust. Let's see. It's been an interesting year getting certification done. And I think, this is certainly partially due to the fact that we're also doing the membership standards and people are confused and I think just I think that there is an obvious growing issue with our school libraries as they experience more and more turnover. So we are not there yet. I don't know if you know what the latest number is.
I just looked it up, and numbers keep ticking up every time, but we do have a ways to go. Currently, we have 1,156 libraries that have certified.
So we've come a long way just in the last few days.
We have come a
And-
long way. There's 1,284 officially on the list, although I know there's several on the list that have
Right.
closed, and I've already informed the state library.
Right, so we know it's not that, but it's not that far down from 1286. The standards data collection has also sped up quite a bit. We're over 600 libraries, which was a huge jump from a month ago. But I have a feeling we're going to have to extend that, but we're not doing anything until after March 31st, and we see where the certification and the traffic survey stand. So just a heads up for now. And I think that if we didn't know before that we needed somebody to help us manage our data, we sure know it now. Part of the problem is that there are 3 separate logins for this, and it, really just, for the 3 different things. So I think we have a growing to-do list for Grant Halter, who will be starting on April 8th. Any questions about any of that? I think it's going to end up to be okay, but I can't say enough about our administrative team, Emily and Jody and Karen and Margie. They just are working like crazy, and Jane's right there helping them too. And the state library is pitching in with some of the more tough and complex issues. So it's a lot of work. Let's see. We're having our member update on April 11th, right?
Correct.
And it is a very robust agenda. I advise you all to take a look at that. One of the main topics that we're going to be discussing is the increase in the minimum wage, which has developed into quite an issue for all of our libraries because of trying to figure out how to deal with it. We were talking about it before in the advocacy committee too. Diane Foote from ILA is going to be part of that conversation because they're also obviously very heavily involved in libraries are of different minds about this and want, ILA to do various conflicting and things sometimes. So, let's see. I think that is it for today. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Peter, I just had a small question.
Yep.
Developing library leaders section of your report. You said you noted there are 35 new public library directors in Rails since last year. Is that kind of an average number, or?
I think it's actually a little bit lower, isn't it, Joe? We had 50, and then one year and more than 60. Round numbers.
Wow.
Yeah, I would say it's usually a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
I was amazed that it was 35. So.
Yeah. Well, I think the first year we hadn't done it for a couple of years, but last year it was up around 50. So, unfortunately, some of the libraries are repeats from one year to another too, which is very
Because it's like a high turnover.
upsetting.
Wow.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Okay, hearing no questions for D, we will move to the Service of the Month report on resource sharing in Illinois. And I think Ann Slaughter, are you giving this report, Ann?
Hey, everyone.
Hi.
So to narrow it down a little bit from resource sharing in general, I'm going to fill you in on what we do to support ILS consortia in our service area. ILS consortia are groups of libraries that share catalog software. So just to fill you in a little bit first on kind of what that picture looks like over, our broader membership. I put this memo in your packet, and I'm just going to kind of go over the highlights of it. It's a fairly complex set of circumstances in our services, and it also is a huge chunk of our budget. So feel free to ask questions. I'll give you as full of a picture as I can. But in terms of our membership, about 36% of our libraries belong to one of 7 catalog consortia. The rest maintain their own catalog software, or a small number of them aren't automated at all. They do everything analog. So within our service area are 6 catalog consortia. The group of academic libraries, Carly, has one of their services is a shared catalog called iShare, and their members span Rails and Heartland service areas. And they don't get direct support from Rails. Of course, we include them in our collaborative activities like the consortia committee and other stuff that we do. The other 6 groups that are contained within our service area get some form of direct support from Rails. They vary vastly in size, from 6 libraries to more than 150. Most of them are multi-type, but they are primarily public libraries. Prairie Cat, Rock River, RSA, and Swan all have more than just public libraries. I'm not sure they don't have all 4 types of libraries. I think Swan actually does, but the non-public libraries in their memberships make up just a few, I would say, except for Rock River. They have 6 school libraries and only 3 publics in their group. And they're a small but mighty group in the Sterling area.
Indeed.
So that's kind of the general picture. So now there are 2 primary ways that we support them, and that's on the back of your memo. We give them direct support, and then we also have a grant that supports the one-time costs for libraries joining those groups. So in terms of our direct operational support, it has evolved since Rails formed, and since I joined Rails in early 2014. At that time, I think we had 9 consortia in our service area, and some of them were independent, while others were LSAPs, which is the Local Library System Automation Program acronym. So we wanted to kind of take down that division between independent and LSAP, which arose out of lots of history dating back to the predecessor systems. Some of them started their own LSAPs, and those LSAPs, in some cases, spun off. In other cases, there was splintering of membership due to various circumstances and conflicts. So we just wanted to kind of even the playing field, so to speak, and take down this artificial division between groups who were doing essentially the same work of resource sharing. So we laid the groundwork beginning in about 2014 to revise the LSAP definition and broaden it so that we could include all of those groups, which was the first step towards us then offering those groups support. Over the subsequent couple years, we had lots of changes in both the consortial landscape and here at Rails, including the couple years of budget cuts when there was no state budget. But eventually we were able to implement some avenues for supporting these groups. And as of this fiscal year, all 6 of the consortia within Rails are now considered LSAPs and receive some form of support for us. The primary form of support, or I should say the most visible form of support, is that potential new members are eligible to apply for those grants. But we also offer financial support to their operations, as well as a mix of, or a variety of in-kind services. that includes financial services, data center services, delivery to their headquarters if they're not headquartered in a library, use of our facilities for staff, which we offer currently to Prairie Cat and RSA, and then we also provide RSA staff. So it's quite a mix. So that's our direct support, and then the catalog grant help these groups expand their memberships. They're just intended to cover the one-time costs, which is often a barrier for libraries joining. They can more easily afford the annual cost, but the one-time cost of data migration can be significant. So we actually started this program in fiscal 15. We're up to 54 grant awards, totaling just over $1.4 million. That has gone to 51 individual libraries as well as 3 group migrations, which has been what has taken down that number of individual consortia. So we have 1 grant period remaining this fiscal year. The deadline is actually on April 17th. We've already gotten 2 applications in, and I'm expecting probably 2 more. There might be 1 or 2 that I'm not aware of. Sometimes that happens, but we do expect to give more grants in this fiscal year, and we're currently working on the budget picture, as you know, for fiscal 20, and some of the work that I do when we're putting our budget together is try and get as much information as I can about upcoming potential migration projects, libraries joining consortia, so that we can try and budget appropriately for what might be requested of us if we're able to do the grant. So that's what I have. I'm happy to answer any questions for you.
So I have a question. So I get that the catalog membership grants are for people to join LSAPs. Now there isn't anything like that academic libraries can get to join iShare.
Correct.
Is there any support for Rails libraries to join iShare?
You know, that's something that it's come up over the years.
I mean, the answer is no.
Down to, yeah.
You know, presently.
Support is just different.
It's a, yes.
No, actually, I have a question when you're finished with her.
I think, I mean, we're certainly not against it. It's just that it's outside of our membership. I mean, I know there are Rails members of iShare, but then there is like the larger issue of iShare and Carly, obviously, and I don't think, I mean, it would have to be something that was done in coordination with Heartland, I think, just because our tax dollars, our budget is theoretically to be used for residents of Rails. So it would it's just trickier. But it'd be great to be able to expand it, for sure.
So I know
Yeah.
there's libraries that would like to be in iShare
Yeah.
that aren't.
But can't afford the migration cost?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we would just need to work out a program so that it wasn't just Rails doing it. It would not be fair for just us to do it. I mean, that's my opinion. I offer that to other members of the board and staff. But it might be, you know, it's something, I mean, we're going to be starting to have meetings regular meetings, I think, with the State Library in Heartland, you know, now that things have kind of stabilized a bit and being able to talk about, well, when you don't have a budget, it's hard to think about much else. So I think, you know, that's exactly the kind of thing that we need to start figuring out. Just as we've, you know, been able to figure out a better way of collaborating on statewide delivery, I think maybe now we can move on to that.
Well, and like on the special library side, I'm guessing you have very little participation.
There are very few special libraries in ILS Consortia. Mm-hmm.
Right. So that whole like issue of how to bring in specials, have things that can appeal to them, and this being such a big part of what you do, it's hard because we don't have that hook. There's not a catalog that a lot of us are probably interested in, mainly because you just don't carry the items that we would borrow. You know, we would borrow mainly engineering things, and that's not found in a public library. a medical library would want, like heavy medical stuff, etc.
Well, I mean, being in an LSAP is not the only option these days, right, Jane? I mean, this is exactly why
Right.
we have Find More, Illinois. Did I say, not Explore More, yes, sometimes I say.
I get this.
Yes, because, you've got UIC.
Right, because what
In
you were saying
there.
about iShare would be more beneficial to us because most of what we borrow from is from an academic. So
Right.
to your point,
But
that
you-
would be a benefit to special libraries too, to get some type, to be able to join iShare, and then have some incentive. Because right now we're in OCLC.
But Find More would also give you interlibrary loan access in the same, but it's just not shared holdings. So it's so.
Although
And
it's only
but
for, it's
much
only for
less.
daily libraries, not for the health.
Right, I know, but we're trying to expand the
Right.
options.
And I'm just bringing up a point.
Sure.
I mean, I'm not
No.
saying like we're definitely not gonna solve that or anything right now. It's just kind of saying for specials, this piece hasn't had a lot for us.
That's true.
At this point.
But that's an excellent thing to keep in mind in these large,
Right.
big discussions.
Right.
Yep.
Now, you said you have a grant period coming up. What are the dates for that? Have you just determined that yet?
The remaining deadline in this fiscal year is April 17th. And we have not planned the deadlines for fiscal 20.
Okay.
This year we had two. They were October and April.
Okay. And do you have any idea how much money is left in that grant?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay.
I think it's a pretty good
Yeah,
amount.
it's a healthy amount,
Because
'cause
it we came in way under budget.
Yeah, we had an interesting project happening right now is the 8 libraries in the NIC consortium in the Rockford area are rejoining Prairie Cat, and they go live in May. Their project was much less expensive than they anticipated.
By
so
hundreds of
we're gonna-
thousands of
Yeah,
dollars.
we're going to come in under budget. I would think.
But we
on
fully
the grant
expect
this
to
year.
do this next year.
Okay.
So, and that's when we will be discussing the budget starting next month, so. Yes, and I think it's not just an academic exercise to reduce the number of consortia or LSAPs, whatever you want to call them, from, was it 11, did you say?
I think it was 11
originally?
at one point.
Was it?
Down to 6, because what happens is when you have fewer consortia, you have reduced administrative costs for the consortia, which means a savings in tax dollars that are supporting, whether it's, local library tax dollars or Rails tax dollars. And this has been a priority of the state library since before Rails. And so it's, in Heartland, they were able to create one large LSAP that has many members. And in Rails, that's really not the culture in Rails because it's more diverse.
Heartland didn't have any independent consortia going into it.
That's true, they didn't, yeah. But we still, as you look at Ann's report, you will see that we still, despite having, even with having multiple consortia, we still have 420 agencies that are involved in the resource sharing and 523 buildings, which is quite a few, and something to be very proud of.
Any other questions or comments for Anne? Okay, thank you for the update. You're welcome.
Thanks, Ann.
Okay, we are moving on to agenda item 7.4, a report from the Illinois State Library.
Thank you. Hi. I have to start by saying thank you, Rail staff. I think you should all know that the Rail staff are doing an incredible job with certification and the interlibrary loan traffic survey and working with Gwen. And it's constant communications back and forth at this point as they're an incredible job of making sure your members are certified and have the traffic survey done. So this is a huge thank you to all of you who are working on that. Dee, your staff are awesome. That's all I can say.
Yes.
We are in.
They are.
as you know. We are in.
Thank you, Karen.
Several states. You're welcome. I mean it. I truly mean that.
I know.
We are in several stages with grant programs right now. We're waiting for approval to award the construction grants. We are reviewing literacy grants for those people who read at 5th grade or below, and the Project Next Generation grants for after-school or Saturday programs for teens who are slipping through the cracks. Getting ready to award those FY20 grants. Those of you in public libraries, you should have received your public library per capita grant award letter this week. If you did not, let us know, because they have all gone out, and we were excited that the funding is at the maximum this year at $1.25. So that's good news. The other thing that in the midst of all this grant reading and everything going on seriously, one of the fun things we're doing right now is we have a Letters About Literature program through the Library of Congress Center for the Book. And we are reading approximately 4,000 letters that students have written to authors about how their book impacted their life. And I will just leave you with this quote that I've got to work in somehow, that one, and I believe it was a 5th grader, wrote that the book was like finding a Fruit Loop in a bowl of Cheerios. So, do you guys have any questions for me? And Dee and staff, we're looking forward to having you in Springfield on April 4th. We are looking forward to these being the first of many meetings where we get together with all of the stakeholders to look at serious planning and how we can move forward.
That is awesome, Karen. We're excited about it.
And there's a band playing across the street. I don't know if you can hear them. So, do you have any questions for me?
Guess not.
Thank you.
We're not hearing any questions. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, we are at agenda item 8, new business, and Paul and Scott, we're going to give an update. This is discussion only on prison libraries and rails.
So, if I remember correctly, Senator McGuire, State Senator McGuire had sort of initiated a conversation with some Southwest suburban libraries about this. I guess for my part, Stateville Prison is within my library district. So the branch manager of our Crest Hill Library it had taken years, but we finally have established a contact at Stateville and have provided used books, culled from the books of the Friends of the Library book sale and whatnot, discards from the library possibly as well, on a couple different occasions. But the last communication we had with them was, put the brakes on, we're kind of flooded now with books, is what we've heard from Stateville. So our interaction with Stateville is kind of on hold right now because they have no shortage of books, is what they're saying. That's just kind of it from my library district. I have yet to have a conversation with Senator McGuire. I know Paul has talked to him, so I don't know if there's some miscommunication happening between the senator and the various libraries, or I'm not sure exactly what he has in mind. Paul might be able to speak a little more to that.
We're looking to actually, so the Pinnacle Library Cooperative, one of the consortia that Ann had been talking about earlier, we have other prison facilities in our service area. So Scott has a good existing relationship with Stateville, but we're going to work with the Illinois Youth Center that's in Joliet. The Shorewood Troy Public Library District is going to be reaching out to them, and the Joliet Public Library is going to reach out to one of their facilities in downtown Joliet to see how we can connect with them. Senator McGuire had spoken at one of the ILA legislative meetups. He thought this was a very good thing to do, an important thing to do, and we, as a cooperative, we all agreed with him that it was. And like I said, Scott had already taken the lead on this, but we're going to reach out to the other 2 facilities too and see what we can do with them.
Yeah, with Joliet being the county seat of Will County, there are, for better or worse, several, as Paul mentioned, sort of places of incarceration, around the Joliet area for various different ages and target audiences, if that's the way to put it.
I have a couple questions. Is there a list of common, I'm going to say, restrictions on library services that everyone would understand what we're doing and what we're not doing, so we don't waste our time doing something that we can't do.
Right,
that won't be allowed.
So I don't know that a written list exists to just point you at right now, but I mean I can just tick off 3 or 4 or 5 things that are good guideposts. The warden or the person in charge of any type of prison or jail is sort of like the king of their own little kingdom, or queen, as the case may be, and they can set their own rules, and they don't always agree with one another. So some places, some prisons or jails will allow some things that another place will not, and that's okay. But a general rule of thumb is they tend to not love hardcover books because they can be used as weapons. You can hit someone with it. Some places do not like magazines because they get ripped up and flushed down the toilets. That kind of thing. So there's varying types of restrictions like that. I worked many years in library outreach and providing services to some jails. And again, some will allow you to come right in there with a cart of books and go down the hallway cell to cell, and some will not, because they see that as a way that things could be smuggled into the jail. So it really is a case-by-case situation to whichever institution you're dealing with.
And is there do you know of any litigation out there, any case law from such a federal that state inmates will have access to 1, 2, or 3, or it's up to the warden to decide?
Yeah, I'm not aware of any. I'm not aware of any litigation or case law like that, but that would be good to know. But
Could you ask that question again, Dave? I couldn't hear you completely.
There may be litigation or cases that have determined what access an inmate may have to library materials. And
like rights they might have, guaranteed rights to access a certain level of.
Right.
Right.
Okay, I see. Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I was wondering. Like, it's going to sound silly. Can you get a library card if you're in prison? Are you considered like a resident? I know nothing about how it works.
So I just know from Stateville being right in the middle of my library district, like literally in the center of my library district, they are considered residents for census purposes. So the city of Crest Hills census number is bolstered by
the
those prisoners that are in the prison. So if they count them for city residency, then I have to assume that they're residents of the library district, but there's no...
Can they get cards?
Well, there's no real way to interact with them on an individual basis, so not in a meaningful way anyways at this point.
I think there's a lot of variation across the country too.
Sure.
I mean, there is a division of a division of a division in ALA that's about prison library. There's 4 prison librarians and prison libraries, and I think some states have a much more highly developed prison library system than it appears that Illinois does. So I think that's, these kinds of questions are why you need libraries in prisons. It's very hard to serve them, the inmates from the outside.
One other fun little fact that I'll just share from years of talking to people that are providing services in prisons. Generally speaking, the worse the crime or the longer term the prisoner is going to be incarcerated, the better library patron they are. And I guess that kind of makes sense, but if you're only going to be in there for 2 years, they tend to maybe not respect the service or the privilege as much. But if you're in there for life, they really value it and they would not want to lose it or jeopardize it in any way. So
So our target audience is the lifers, the hardened.
The hardcore, the murderers are the best.
I'm just kidding. I hope everybody knows that.
Right.
Target audience.
Sorry.
Well, I know what you were talking about, Dave, because when I worked in the courts in Arizona, there was a federal judge's order about what some materials that prisoners were required to be allowed to have access to, but it was legal research materials. But it was also very hard to, since it was only a judge's order, it wasn't, officially reported. It was really hard to keep track of it. So there could possibly be things like that in Illinois, but it's hard to know.
Yeah, it would probably have to be from maybe the appellate level down, or the district, kind of like, that's when they start getting their
Right,
attention.
that was from a district judge in the District of Arizona.
Library service in prison is challenging, and actually to go back to a question you brought up earlier, we used to have a prison library in one of the LSAPs, and servicing, this was back in the dumb terminal days, if that'll give you an idea how long we're talking about. Servicing them was a challenge, to provide that service, to get into the prison, to work with it. We had to keep very restricted access to that terminal, and what it could do and what it couldn't do. For those of you who remember the Lynx web browser, browse the web. We're looking to see what we can replicate at the other facilities in our service area. It's definitely a need, definitely something that should be done and a good thing to do. So.
Right.
It must have been about 10 years ago. I actually, when I worked in journalism, I did some stories with the Spoon River Correctional Center in Canton. And I know they said a couple of things that apply to libraries that really affected them was like the loss of whatever the grant they used to get. I think it was called like the Pell Grant. There was a certain grant that libraries got for education, like at your medium security libraries, to provide some kind of education while they were, where they could take classes. And over time, that grant has been greatly reduced, so they don't get as much money for education. But at Spoon River, I know they had like several programs with community colleges, so the inmates could get education while they were still in prison, in hopes that when they got out, they could transition into work. So I guess for the libraries, I think some of the prisons may have agreements with community colleges.
That's interesting.
Because they're providing some, I remember at Spoon River, like culinary arts, they could take culinary arts classes. I think some of the women's, you could take like beauty school. I mean, they're kind of like your associate's degree, community college things. So I don't know, maybe the community college libraries through NILRIC have
Something else to ask them, James.
if you're looking for like a connection.
Yeah, that's very interesting and useful.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Thank you, Paul.
Ronald, I'll just say that while you were talking, I got on my legal research program on my computer, and it looks to me like in Illinois, at least the couple of pages that I've scrolled through, that it's access to law libraries that's going to be the litigated issue. Like you said, Dee, in Arizona, it's either you have to have access to an attorney or reasonable access to a law library, and not just the nice cart going around with the newest history on it.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, while you were talking, I just looked this up. And see this thing where I didn't totally verify this yet, but it is from the Illinois Community College Trustees Association, which does talk about community colleges and universities in Illinois that provide courses for state prison inmates. So I do think that's a thing.
All right, that's very useful.
That doesn't mean that they have access to the libraries, though.
No.
Or that there even is a library.
Well, I mean that they would have access to the library of the community college.
Right, yeah. Right.
Okay, any other discussion on this? Okay, again, thank you, and we will move to agenda item number 9, unfinished business, and we're back to the advocacy committee report.
I'm going to turn it over to Gwen.
Gwen.
Okay, let me just piece of paper. So today, right before this meeting, we had a meeting of the advocacy, the new advocacy committee, which is me as the chair, Michael Campbell, Liza Hickey, Tom Stagg, Laura Turner. So we're still forming what we're going to do and hoping to report back all kinds of exciting things, but we did hear more about the Rails Libraries Tell Their Stories campaign survey and advocacy activities we've been doing. One thing that we are talking about is some talking points that emerged from the survey and how to share those with everyone on the board, as well as sharing some simple advocacy tips that everyone on the board could do if they wanted to. Does that characterize what we talked about?
Yes. A specific example being, friending, whatever the right term would be, Rails on Facebook and reposting our posts. I just wanted to also add, I did send an email to the whole board this morning about IMLS. It's really important to advocate for that money. So if you have any questions about how to do that, please don't hesitate to call me.
Okay, thank you, Gwen. Thank you, Dee. We will go to 9.2, the strategic plan progress report. This is discussion only with Dee.
Yes, Jane's going to help me. As I said last time, we're going to just wend our way through this document. So the document hasn't changed. It looks like this. And we just wanted to work our way down. We're still on, page 2. But we wanted to talk a little bit more about Find More. We talk a lot about, sorry, microphone. About Find More, you hear about it, and we report on it in the report. But we're going to give you a little bit of an update about some pricing improvements that we've gotten from the vendor. And I just wanted again to, it already came up a little bit, but I just wanted again to remind everybody why we're doing this, because it's been going on a while, and it can get hazy when it's in the past. But as Ann was describing, we have these LSAPs, and the reason that, by the way, that we keep using that term is that it is in the administrative code as a term. We're stuck with that term. So LSAP, commit it to memory. So we do have these LSAPs that are fully shared catalogs. They all together, join all of their holdings and jointly fund it, whoever the member libraries are. Find More is different than that. Find More is a connecting software that allows libraries that don't want to be in a consortium, an LSAP, or can't afford to be, or want to also be in one but reach out to others, to see yet more library resources and be able to borrow them and get them delivered to them. So it's an option. It's a cheaper option for some libraries that can't afford. It's also an option for libraries that can afford to join, potentially whatever they want, but prefer not to share so much, to reserve the right to not have all of their holdings loaded into this shared catalog. So it's a way of preserving more local control in that sense as well as being cheaper. So it also has, which we haven't gotten to yet, but at some point we will be able to provide through this software an actual online catalog. Tell me if I say this wrong. I'm saying it right so far.
A union catalog.
A union catalog.
Actually, we do have that now. We have one library that's using it, where their records are physically exported and combined with others who are doing the same thing into what's called a union catalog. And for libraries that are not automated at all, they will be able to go into that catalog and attach their information.
Right.
to existing records, and we will, if they need records put in, we will help them do that.
So it's an affordable, easier probably way of getting those libraries that you saw the number of which are not automated, which is a little bit shocking in this day and age, to be automated. And then they are also able to more broadly share their resources and access resources in other libraries. So that's the reason that we're doing it. And it's one of these things that needs to get to a certain size in order to be really, I mean, the more it grows, the more useful it will be. So, on that note, Jane is going to talk just a little bit about what how the pricing is going to help with that and just where we are.
In general terms, yes. Autographics is our vendor for the software, and they have been very good to work with, and in fact came to us and said, hey, we have some ideas where we can revise the pricing. This gets a little bit technical based on the low penetration of use of a protocol called NCIP, National Circulation Interchange Protocol, which provides some additional functionality, but it requires that the library or consortium have it in their integrated library system, which is an additional cost, so most do not have that. That's not required, but it's a nice thing to have, but it comes at additional cost. So Autographics came back to us, adjusted some pricing for us. I'm working on how that can be reflected in our annual membership fees. That will be part of the APC grant application that you'll be asked to approve in May. So we're looking at adjusting some pricing for fiscal 20. Looking at bringing down the pricing for the higher tiers of our membership fee structure, because frankly, the lower tiers are already extremely good pricing in terms of what it costs us to do it. So hopefully that will make it somewhat more attractive to some of our larger libraries. Other things that have been happening, we have been seeing slow but steady growth in the program. The monthly report included the Cohort C libraries, 5 of which came live in early March. Since then, we've had 3 more libraries commit and actually have already signed their participation agreements, so I can name them. Normal Public Library, which is an RSA member, will be joining. Addison Public Library, which has a standalone ILS, will be joining. Both of those we're anticipating probably end of May. And then Sterling High School, which is a member of the Rock River Library Consortium, is joined too. We don't have their implementation schedule worked out yet. Also, we've been working with Autographics to talk about upgrading to version 6 of their software, which will be introduced in just a week or 2. So we have scheduled that for the end of April, and that is going to allow us to do some additional software development that we've had in the works, but have been waiting for version 6 to be available. That includes the software development needed to bring SWAN libraries in. SWAN has some special requirements for connections, so we hope to get some SWAN libraries in once we make that available as well. Those are the highlights. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Dee. Thank you, Jane. Okay, item 10, board development. Reports from academic library issues by Gwen.
And I have a paper copy if anyone needs it. I sent it late yesterday.
Pick one out.
So I apologize for not sending a paper out to NERC. So I was just going to talk for a few minutes about academic libraries and answer questions. Not that I'm expert on everything about academic libraries in the universe, but just to tell you a little bit more about them. Academic libraries are usually thought of as libraries associated with educational institutions, but above K through 12. But at any different level, so that could include like a trade school, but it could also include a, research university or some other kind of research institute. Sometimes there is a little bit of overlap between special and academic libraries if you're finding some kind of research thing. Is it part of a university? Is it not? And there could be sort of special libraries that are on university campuses sometimes. Also, things like special schools, like medical schools and law schools, would be considered academic libraries. So as you can imagine, sometimes they're open to the public and sometimes they're not, depending on a lot of factors like whether their parent institution is a public entity or not. And that varies a lot as to what they're willing to loan, whether they're willing to let the public come in and check things out, use their facility, or they're just closed. It varies quite a lot in academic libraries. So as was mentioned earlier, the Consortium of Academic and Research Libraries in Illinois, or CARLI, is the major consortium serving academic libraries in Illinois. And there are 130 member libraries of CARLI. And CARLI members have to pay an annual membership fee, which ranges from about $2,000 to $12,000 a year. So we don't get to be in CARLI for free. We certainly get a lot of things from CARLI, but we have to pay for it.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Doesn't include iShare?
I think that it does.
Okay.
I was, in fact, was just trying to confirm that earlier, but I'm pretty sure that it does.
Okay.
And it includes the delivery, although we have to pay for the delivery point. We pay CARLI for the delivery point that we have, like in our library.
For additional points, correct?
Probably as an institution.
Yes.
Because U of I has multiple branches, you only get one, which is, so you have to pay for the additional one.
Okay, so I guess we have to pay for like 4 more, because we have, so say John Marshall Law School is joining us, so they have to pay for one for themselves, because they're over there. So as you can imagine, academic libraries focus on the students, faculty, and staff of their institution and serving those people especially. They also might serve other people, but those are usually the main focus, not the only focus. And those needs and wants could vary a lot depending on what your school teaches. So I had some examples. So if you're in a community college and you have people studying culinary arts, they might want cookbooks, and I used to work at a school like this, had books on napkin folding, and trade magazines about running a restaurant, that kind of thing. But if you're serving engineering students, they'll want a totally different kind of thing. They'll want like standards and books to study for their engineering certification exam, and all kinds of textbooks. Academic libraries also these days really focus a lot on electronic resources of all types. And you might remember at a board meeting a while ago, I was asking, what percentage of public libraries' materials budgets do they usually spend on electronic resources? And so in academic libraries, it varies. It might vary from like 75 to 95% of the materials budget is for electronic resources. Partly that's just because people like them. They like to use them. Lots of people are not on site when they're using things. Even if you have online students. So say at UIC, for example, we have physical libraries in Chicago. We have 2, and then we have in Peoria and Rockford and Urbana. But we also have sites where we have students in Springfield and in Quad Cities, and there's no library there at all. And that's not even just kind of online students that are just anywhere. So all those people would like to use electronic resources, especially because they don't really have access to our physical things. iShare works so that they could use iShare and have iShare materials delivered to a location that's close to them. Another iShare member library, but it's still more convenient to use electronic resources. So But even aside from that, the academic library can also be an important physical presence on campus. A building like this on college campuses, depending on what the academic institution is like, is often a sort of a third place for the students. Like a student center where our students are hanging out. They may not necessarily be doing all library things, but they're there. They're studying, they're eating lunch, they're chatting, they're working on group projects. It's an important spot for students to be. So what do academic librarians do? We do lots of things. We teach students how to do research and use resources and kind of develop critical thinking skills. We do a lot of now more things with digital scholarship and management of data information. That's a really big issue right now. We also buy all those materials, negotiate the licenses for all those electronic resources, even though we have consortia like Carly. So our library, for example, gets electronic resources through several different consortia, but then there's also some that we have to get on our own because they're not available through any consortium, so we have to negotiate the licenses ourselves. We digitize things. Many academic libraries have large collections of archival materials or special collections, so we often are digitizing those materials to make them available to the wider world. And academic librarians also do their own research on all these different kind of issues. Academic libraries are usually funded by their parent institution. So we are really dependent on whatever the institution is that we're part of and how they fund the library, how they see that as a priority and what they want us to do. One budgeting issue that happens a lot is many things that are in academic libraries are continuing subscriptions. A lot of electronic resources are continuing things that we have to pay for every year, kind of like journals. And there's constant inflation on that where our budgets are pretty flat. So every year we have to cut things because we get the same amount of money if we're lucky, and everything goes up 3 to 5 to 7%. So every year we have to figure out what to get rid of. Of course, for academic librarians, like all other librarians, our professional groups are very important and we love them. The Association of College and Research Libraries is a big national one. In fact, the ACRL conference is in a few weeks and I'm going to that. I think Dan from Rails is going to that also. Mm-hmm. In Illinois, there's the Illinois Association of College and Research Libraries. And then there's also many special associations like the medical libraries, law libraries, all kinds of other special subject ones, sort of like Laura was mentioning earlier. Oh wait, that was at the other meeting. So academic librarians can kind of flock together with science librarians or art librarians to get together and talk about things that they are interested in. So if you just think about academic libraries that might be in your area, you might think about your local community college or university. And I don't know if you've ever visited there to see what it was like. It might be different than, depending when it was, when you last attended an institution of higher education. The library might be different now than it was a few years ago. There may be many more things that are online, kind of like if you've attended a college or university these days, it's so much more online with things like online course management systems. Libraries are really trying to get into all those facets of higher education as well. So does anyone have any questions or thoughts?
I want to thank you very much, Gwen. It was very well written.
Thank you.
Thank you for the information.
You guys are like us where we spend way more on online and electronic. That's the bigger part of our budget. But a lot of what you describe in academics is parallel to what we see, where we're at.
Makes
Right,
sense.
because see, like your users came right out of us.
Yes, yeah. I mean, really, yeah. We did a project with Purdue to identify gaps between when they're coming from you and getting to us and try to do some.
Right, and I know this because a person that I know was telling me how he would like to get interns who are college students, because then they could use the databases that they had access to as a college student that the business that he worked at didn't have. So he would get them to do research using their college student resources and would take advantage of it, which probably wasn't strictly legal, but he lived in another
Definitely
state,
not.
so it wasn't like it
Don't
was
tell Gail
Illinois.
that.
Right.
And we often get requests, I think most colleges and universities do, from people after they graduate, and they're like, can I have access to this since I'm an alum?
Right. Well, they find them useful when they're there,
Right.
and they want them
Right.
again. Yeah, yeah. Okay,
Not a
anybody?
bad thing.
No, it's a good thing.
No,
Yeah.
it's
a
just
good
not
thing.
usually a thing that they can do.
No, I know,
with their
but
licenses.
it's interesting
They
when
usually
you
have to
think
say
that you're
no.
Right.
that you're turning away a. You have to, I know, but yeah. Sorry.
And your budget stuff is the same as ours too. I mean, we have the same thing, the increase in the prices from the publishers, but our budgets stay the same. So we've been in the same situation where we're cutting from year to year in little bits instead of going in the direction we want to all the time. So a lot of things you said were familiar. So. Anybody else have any questions for Gwen or comments besides me having a side conversation with Gwen over here?
Gwen, this is probably more of a technical question, but the online resources that, the majority of an academic library's budget is going towards, the holy grail, of course, is remote access to those for the students. How do they accomplish authentication for that? Is it through like a student ID or?
Usually, so there's different ways to do it. There's one.
Sorry about that.
It's usually done through a proxy server, and it is through the student management system on campus.
There's like a portal they log into first, and then from there go to the resource.
What it basically is so the one part of it that makes it kind of weird is you have to go through it, like through our webpage to make it go through our proxy server. You can't just like go to it randomly from the internet, because then it won't try and authenticate you. You have to make it try and authenticate you, and then it will kind of take you to our student identification system and use your login to do that way. And that's really how most academic libraries do it, even smaller ones.
I figured there had to be some sort of extra step to keep the cost down, so the vendor knows that there aren't.
Right,
the whole
right.
world's not using that portal.
Right.
And we often get, at least every week, get notifications from vendors that they're like shutting us down because someone was downloading too much, and then we have to go investigate and see what happened. And then it, usually it's not anything illegal, but it might be that
It's more window washing.
Some professor in the College of Medicine decided that he needed 100 articles and he was going to download them all right that moment, and that they're worried that people in Russia are stealing all their articles, and then they're going to put them up for free or sell them or something.
Right.
Do we have any questions on the phone? Dee or Nadia, do you have any questions for Gwen?
None from me. None from me either, but I did learn a lot today, so thank you so much, Gwen.
Okay, if we have no other questions for Gwen, and thank you very much for that report.
Thank you for that.
Learned a lot in the last 8 from school, from academic, prisons.
Yep.
My knowledge of what's going on in different library worlds is definitely expanding.
That's good.
It is, yeah, I agree. Okay, item 11, Rails board member reports. Would anyone like to share what's happening at their library?
I just have a quick thing to share. 2 days ago, one of our school librarians passed away. It was unexpected, and so we've been dealing with that. So I don't know. Her name was Gigi Kimball. She was one of our middle school librarians, and she'd been battling cancer and contracted the flu, and
Oh.
with her weak immune system, she couldn't fight it. So it's kind of a sad time. We've been all kind of working with a heavy heart this last couple of days.
Sorry.
So that's not uplifting, but.
Well, then your students, I think it'd be hard on the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry to hear that. Anyone else have anything they'd like to share from their library, either in the room or on the phone? Okay. Okay.
The Aurora Public Library has very clean windows.
I was going to say.
Yes.
Really good.
They've been, for the people who are on the other side of the video conference, they've been cleaning windows the entire time. Some of us have been here since 10:30 in the morning, and they've been doing the windows, so, yeah. But they're sparkling, I mean, really, they really are. Okay, so agenda building for the next Rails Board meeting. Our next Rails Board meeting will be held on Friday, April 26th in East Peoria. The Rail Service of the Month report will be the Explore More Illinois program. And does anybody have anything they'd like to see on the agenda?
We're going to be discussing the area per capita grant and the budget. Whether you want to talk about it or not, we will be talking about it.
Okay. Come prepared.
That's right.
Okay, without hearing anything, any suggested agenda items, we will move to item 13, maybe our favorite item sometimes, adjournment. I'll adjourn this meeting at, it's on military time, I'm so sorry. Okay, at 2:15. Today, I adjourn the meeting at 2:15. Thank you for your attendance.
Thanks, Laura.
Thank you.
Thank everyone.
Sorry about that.
Thank you. Thank you.